Hello and welcome. This is Christian Wasinger. We are ready to start with our Google Hangout today. And today's topic will be NLP's presuppositions. So I want to talk about the different presuppositions or beliefs that NLP is formed upon. And my book is loosely based on some of those presuppositions. Now, some of you may have read my book already. It's called 10 Ways to Reboot Your Mind for Success. This is what it looks like, me with hair. If you haven't read it yet and you would like to read it, you can get it on Amazon, you can get it on Kindle, and you can get it through my website, 10waystorebootyourmind.com, or also right on the bottom of the screen, you can see the NLPexpert.com and simply go to the tab that says the book. There are also other previous Hangouts that are made available to you on my website, so you can watch the videos also right there on the web. So let's get started. What is NLP? Very quickly, NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And NLP is basically about how we take in information, how we process that information, and how we give meaning to that information. We all do it the same way. We all take in information, we run it through, let's call them filters, and our filters can be our past experiences, our beliefs, our values, the way we use language, meta programs. That's an NLP term I'll probably talk in a different video about. So we take in information and we process that information through our past experience or all of our filters, and then what we do is we create an internal representation of that experience. That internal representation can be visual, it can be auditory, it can be kinesthetic, it can be a combination of such, and that visual representation or internal representation influences our physiology, our state of mind, and our physiology. And based on our state of mind and our physiology, we respond to our experiences. So we take in information, process it, and run it through filters. That in turn creates an internal representation, which causes us to feel a certain way. It changes our state of mind and our physiology, and then based on our state of mind, we respond or behave certain ways. So that's what NLP is all about. And NLP provides a variety of different tools. It's like a big toolbox or a tool belt. And there are tools such as working with the presuppositions, number one. It could be working with submodalities. It could be working with eye patterns. It could be working with language patterns. So there are a variety of different tools and techniques that are available to us. And those tools we can use, and we're going to talk about them. I'm just going to make sure my sounds are turned off here on my computer so you don't get a whole bunch of sounds while we are talking. Alright, turning everything off, and we are back. So there are several presuppositions, and let's see, which one do I want to start first with? Let's start with a very controversial one. I like to start with something controversial. Let's start with a presupposition that's called every behavior has a positive intention, or every behavior stems from a positive intention. And this particular presupposition is very often misunderstood. So let's just say, for example, if you think, well, this person, a particular person, has done me wrong or has hurt me, and I feel really betrayed or angry, so how can there be a positive intention? I would like for you to look at it this way. I would like for you to think about it by separating intention from behavior. So we look at two very different parts here. There is the actual behavior, And then there's the intention behind the behavior. And I want to share with you where this actually comes from, this presupposition. It comes from the work of Virginia Satir, who was one of the people that NLP was modeled after. And Virginia Satir was a family therapist. And through observing children, she started to notice that, behavior and attention are not the same, even though many people, kind of put it in the same thing here. So when observing children, and even before they can talk, and I had an amazing example that I witnessed myself here, and I'm going to share that story with you. So I visited with some friends of mine, two friends, and they both had babies that were born within about a month from one another. And they got to visit San Diego, and they visited the San Diego Zoo. And both of those kiddos got a stuffed animal. And I don't remember who got what, but they both had, let's just say, an elephant and a tiger. And we had one kid had the elephant, the other one had the tiger, and they were probably about 10, 11 months at that age where they just start to crawl, but they don't walk yet. And they were playing with the toys in the hotel room, and then all of a sudden, one got way more interested in the other's toy. So basically he just took the other baby's toy and started to playing with that. Meanwhile, the first baby was like dumbstruck and just looking, what just happened to my toy here? And what that baby did, he started to hit the stealer over the head with, whatever he could grab. So of course the mothers, stopped that, because obviously we don't want to, condone violence, the violent behavior, hitting someone over the head. So the behavior is maladaptive. However, the intention behind that behavior was that first baby simply defending, standing up for himself, defending his toy. Is like, hey, that is my toy. It is not okay. So the intention was to stand up for himself. That is a positive intention. However, the behavior itself was not a positive behavior. So we want to separate the behavior from the intention. Now, the unfortunate part is that oftentimes we are on the receiving end of the behavior, where a behavior comes towards us from someone else that's not a positive or pleasant one. And that's when it gets a little hard to take. So if you, for example, think of something that happened to you in the past. Perhaps someone hurt you. And, you think of how that made you feel. And think about the behavior for a moment. And then think about that particular behavior was motivated by a positive intention. Now, that positive intention may not have been positive for you, but it may have been positive for that other person. Example, I grew up with a dad who often told his children, oh, you're not good enough, or you're not amounting to anything, oh, my kids screwed up again, and oh, my kids are so stupid, or whatever it might have been. And maybe you're familiar with a scenario like that. So if that's the case, just think about it that way. There was somewhere a positive intention underneath a parent's behavior. In my case, I'd like to think it was because my dad felt very insecure about his own education. He was or is dyslexic, and that was before that was even being diagnosed. So he was very insecure about his writing, his spelling, and he probably did not feel as smart or educated as he would have wanted to. And I believe putting down his children, and mind you, I don't believe he did that consciously, but putting down his children kind of helped him to feel better about himself. So there you have the behavior, which was obviously not pleasant for us children, and then there was the intention, which is a very different story. Also remember, whatever someone else talks about you, calls you, whatever it is, it has nothing to do with you whatsoever. It has absolutely nothing to do with you. It is their perception of you, and that's completely theirs. You have absolutely no influence over that. Now, think about it. When you walk into a room and people will make up something about you before they even meet you, and you do the same thing. We all do. We all make up something about the people, and we have already opinions about them before we even get to talk with them. We all do it. We have to give meaning to our experiences, and seeing a person is just part of an experience, so we have to give it a meaning. Maybe that person reminds us of someone else, so we put them in the same box, and simply because they remind us of someone, we may start liking them or disliking them. So it has absolutely nothing to do with you. So quickly going back, summarizing that first presupposition of NLP, which is every behavior is motivated by a positive intention. Just remember, separate the intention from the behavior. It's all positive. And it's never about you. It's always about the other people's perception of you. Now, let's move on to another presupposition. And I think what I'd like to do next is, looking at my sheets here, all of the different ones, I'd like to go to that we all do the best that we can with the resources that we have. We do always our personal best. And if you, for example, have read the Four Agreements, you know, that's one by Don Miguel Ruiz, that's one of the agreements, always do your personal best. And I actually think it goes without saying, because I do believe we always do our personal best with the resources and the knowledge that we have. Now the challenge is, hindsight is 20/20, and when we look at some of our experiences from the past and what we have done, or our failures, and we'll talk about them separately, we often think that, oh, we could have done better. Well, reality is we couldn't have done better, because we did the best we could with the resources and the knowledge that we had at that given moment. And don't regret that you have chosen a certain path, or don't regret that you did what you did, because at that moment it is what you wanted, and you did the best thing that you could with what you knew. Now the challenge is, and I'm going to close the blinds here a little bit, it's getting a little toasty. The challenge is that oftentimes people tend to punish themselves for the things that they did in the past, because they believe they should have done better, or they could have done better. And if you want to know more about language and the should and the could, and why I emphasize that right now, go ahead and watch last week's Google Hangout, which is posted on the website 10ways-to-reboot-your-mind.com. So they beat themselves up over not having done their best. Well, or for not having done a certain things, or for not having done what they should or could have done. You got it. So the problem with that is, when you do that, you actually beat yourself up over doing the best, over doing your personal best. That is the problem with that. And I think I put it in a lovely quote here in my book, and I just want to read that off to you. And I'm just finding it for you, because I think it is so important that we understand that. It's coming. There's a lot in this book, and I call it a plop book, which means you can just plop it open wherever you want to, and you'll find something. You'll find something good and useful, hopefully. So I think it is here. And it is, of course, you know when you look for something, how you never find exactly what it is that you were looking for? Well, I feel I'm there right now. All right, I found it. Here we go. Remember that you always do your personal best based on the knowledge and resources you have. If you punish yourself for your actions and behaviors, you ultimately punish yourself for doing your personal best. So we always do the best that we can with the resources that we have. And of course, looking back, knowing hindsight is 2020, now we have new resources, we have more resources, we have learned something from the experience, and therefore we think we could have done better. But the learnings and the understandings that the experience gave us and life itself, we didn't have that back then. So we did ultimately our personal best with the resources that we have. Which leads me to the next presupposition I would like to share with you, which is individuals have all of the resources that they require to achieve their desired outcomes. We have all the resources, and all the resources are present. Now that's another one people sometimes have a bit of a challenging time accepting, and I think part of why that is because we may not always realize that all the resources are already here. And the reason for that is because sometimes our consciousness and our awareness level is not there to realize the resources. That doesn't mean that it is not there. I spoke with last week with the metaphor, when we are watching something on channel 4, we see what's on channel 4, but we can't really see what's on channel 8 or 9 or whatever channel you want to look at. But that doesn't mean that the program on channel 8 isn't there. The program is there all along. You just don't see it because you're on a different channel. You're on a different level of consciousness. So it's much like when you buy a new car and you never notice the car all that much, and now you bought yourself that particular kind of car. Let's just say you buy yourself a Prius because you want to be environmentally friendly, and you didn't notice them much around, but now since you drive that car, bam, all of a sudden you see the car all around you. So you have just switched your awareness level. Your consciousness has grown around that particular type of vehicle, and you start to notice it. Now that does not mean it wasn't there the week before you bought it. It was there all along. You just were not tuned into that channel before. So all the resources that we need are there. Now, how can we tap into them more? I think sometimes we are just asking ourselves the wrong questions. So it's important that you ask yourself the correct questions. Now, a lot of times people ask the why question. Why can't I? Why don't I? Why am I not successful? Why can't I lose weight? Why can't I be more disciplined? And the problem with that question is when we ask the why question, it will keep us circling right around the problem, and we'll get stuck in that problem, and we're not getting any closer to an answer or a solution. So rather than asking the why question, you want to ask yourself the question, what can I do now to finally let go of that extra weight? Or what can I do to move towards living a more successful life? And of course, you need to first define what that success means for you, or what that looks like for you. So rather than asking a why question, ask a what or a how question. I oftentimes, talk about resources also as feelings, feeling confident. That is something that a lot of people may want to feel more of, and that can be a resource that some people may need more of, want more of, or choose to have more of. Well, reality is that they already have that feeling of confidence, because we are born with those feelings. And as a matter of fact, we are born with all of the feelings we can possibly have. It is just that sometimes we don't know how to access them, or sometimes people believe they can't access them. So here's an easy trick for that, and a trick to mind. So imagine a feeling. Let's just go with confidence. And let's just say, if you were to say, well, I just don't feel confident. And a lot of people come to me and they say that, or maybe some people say, well, I have never felt loved, and I don't even know what it feels like to feel loved. And what I will have those people do is like say, okay, well, just close your eyes for me a second. And maybe you want to play along, unless you're driving. Close your eyes and maybe play along with that experiment. And I want you to, if you want to feel more loved, or if you want to feel more confident, I want you to think of a person that already feels that way. Think of a person that you know, or maybe you don't know. It could be even someone that you completely make up, a fictional character, but make up a person that feels loved or feels confident. And just create an image in your mind of that person. And then I want you to imagine as if you could step inside of that person. So imagine now stepping inside of that person. And it's almost as if your nervous system intertwines with theirs. You can see out of their eyes. You notice their posture. And then you can observe their thought patterns. Notice what their beliefs are, what their attitudes are perhaps, what their values are. And then notice what they feel like, what it feels like for them to feel loved or to feel confident. Notice how they feel and imagine what it feels like for them. And then notice that in your body, those feelings, because you're inside within them and your nervous system is intertwined. And you can have their feelings and their experiences and feel those feelings. And then just make those feelings a little bit stronger, because they can. And from deep within you can. And just observe all of that. And then perhaps you may notice also some knowledge or wisdom that they have about that feeling. And you have permission to absorb anything and all of it into your consciousness, into your own physical body even. So absorb it and notice how that feels. And then, once you've absorbed it all and noticed that feeling, then just go ahead and step outside of that person once again. Very good. And then open your eyes. So, you just felt a certain feeling. You felt the feeling of confidence, of feeling loved. Now that was your feeling. And that feeling has been there all this time, because we all have the ability to feel loved. We all have the ability to feel confident. Now we just, trick the mind a little bit to access those feelings. We used someone else to access them. We used a proxy. But ultimately, you felt those feelings, and those feelings were yours. So that really means that you have the ability, you have the power to feel confident, to feel loved, or to feel whatever feeling it is that you are choosing to experience, or that you previously thought you lacked. So presupposition number 3, I think that was, we have all of the resources already within us. All right, let's see. What else do we want to talk about? We still have a little bit of time. We want to keep this at about half an hour. If anyone has any questions, feel free to type them into the question section. And let's see which one. Oh, yes, let's talk about this one. Big one. The next presupposition, and I think that's the last one for today I want to talk about, is all outcomes are achievements. There is only feedback. There is no failure. There is no failure. There's only feedback. Now, that one, again, let's talk about that for a moment. There really is no failure. If you want to think about something in life for a moment that you really absolutely wanted and you achieved that, you got that, whether it was a goal that was important to you or you got a degree, just think about that. Now, you may not have accomplished that right the first time around, but because it was important to you, you just kept going at it, you kept trying, or you changed your approach, or you tried something else until you accomplished that. And you may have heard the famous interview of Edison when a reporter asked him, how did it feel when you have failed 1,000 times? Or however many times when he invented the light bulb. And he said, I did not fail. Those were all important steps I needed to take and learnings I needed to learn in order for this to work. So those are just steps. There are no failures. They're only feedback. Now, people then often ask me, well, what about when I failed at this and failed at that? And I would like to say, you never did. Because if whatever that was important enough to you, you would have continued pursuing it. And perhaps it was no longer a goal, and you decided, you know what, this is no longer desirable for me. Or perhaps your circumstances changed, perhaps you got married and you had children, and your priorities shifted, and as a parent, whatever that goal was, it was no longer important to you, and you decided to let it go. You let it go, or you no longer pursued it. Now, that does not mean that you failed. It simply means that you decided it is no longer worth pursuing. So there is no failure. When you are at a place in your life when you temporarily forget that truth, that there is no failure, and you thought, oh no, I failed, remind yourself, no. That's feedback. That's feedback from the universe that I'm not quite there yet. That perhaps I need to try something differently. I have to try a different approach. And perhaps you're not ready yet. Perhaps there's some ingredient that's missing. So you just go back to the drawing board. Or perhaps you model someone and you look into, well, who has done this before and how did they do it and how did they get there? So then you can model that person. But ultimately, you never failed. You did not fail at anything. Just, take on that belief. Why do you want to do that? Taking on that belief, just like with all the other presuppositions, those are just beliefs. And why would you want to take them on? The reason why is because they help you to feel better. They help you be more resourceful. And when you feel better, when you feel more resourceful, you are going to live a happier, more successful life, and you keep going forward towards achieving your goals. So there is no failure. There's only feedback. Only feedback. And I think we're going to leave it with those presuppositions. Let's quickly summarize the ones we spoke about today. I do believe we started with people do the best they can with the resources they have. No, we started with every behavior is motivated by positive intentions. And remember that there's the difference between the intention and the behavior. Then we spoke about we have all the resources that we require for our outcomes. We also spoke about there is no failure, there is only feedback, and I believe we spoke about we do the best we can with the resources we have. I think I already said that. So I hope you took some wonderful learnings away from today. Perhaps next time we talk about some more of the presuppositions, or perhaps next week's webinar might be about letting go, because I think we all have the tendency of holding on to stuff for too long. And when we hold on to stuff and we're not letting go, it's really difficult for us to move forward. That's it for today. Thank you for joining me. I hope I'll see you back next week at the same time, Thursday, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. This video will again be available on my website, and so you can watch it over again in case you missed something or you tuned in a little bit late. Till next time, make today an amazing day for yourself, because you have the power to do so. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.